Elisa was a 21-year-old Canadian student who disappeared in 2013 at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles while she was traveling across the U.S. A video of Elisa, filmed in a hotel elevator before she vanished, went viral when it was released by LA police during their investigation. The elevator doors didn't close. She appeared to be speaking with someone unseen. Her movements were strange. She jumped in and out of the elevator, then she vanished. Elisa's body was found in the water tank on the hotel's roof 19 days after she was first reported missing. Some people said the video was evidence of supernatural activity, and there's still conspiracy theories about Elisa's disappearance to this day. And that's one of the reasons director Joe Berlinger wanted to make this series. This story has been told before, but I think it's been done very irresponsibly in the past, Joe tells Radio 1 Newsbeat. For the average viewer, it's another compelling story you watch, then you move on to the next. But for who this happened to, it's the worst moment of their life. It's a real tragedy for that person and that family. The circumstantial evidence in the Elisa Lam case is compelling. The video, the similarities to the plot of horror movie Dark Water, and even suggested links to a tuberculosis test called Lam Elisa are all part of what's driven the conspiracy theories and ghost theories that are still popular online today. We certainly need to talk about the ghost stories and contextualize them, Joe says. It's not like you can avoid it because it's part of the story. The ghost stories were partly driven by the findings of web sleuths who were working to piece together Elisa's final moments at the same time as the LA Police Department. Several feature in this series showing the tunnel vision of people if they only focus on the coincidence and conspiracy. Joe says that sometimes web sleuths can do wonderful things, but in Elisa's case, their actions were a little misguided. Elisa's family don't feature, other than in archived news footage, but they knew Joe was retelling the story. I think they were just wanting to move on, he says. If you look at the other tellings of the story, you'd see she was a victim of some horrible, evil presence that took control of her. Those kinds of narratives, I think, are incredibly disrespectful, and probably why the family just didn't want to deal with another show that was going to exaggerate the circumstances of the tragedy. The LA police coroner and manager of the Cecil Hotel at the time do, however, speak for the first time about what happened. The hotel manager was Amy Price, and it wasn't the first time she'd been asked to speak about this. Usually I just roll my eyes and think, oh, here's another one, she tells Newsbeat. There have been so many pieces done on this, and to be honest, I haven't watched any of them. This one, she said, felt right. The Cecil Hotel at the time of Elisa's disappearance wasn't a typical hotel. Set in the heart of downtown LA, which was a massive homelessness problem, some floors were for visitors, like Elisa, while others were short or long-term accommodation for people who lived in the Skid Row area. After Elisa's disappearance, fingers were pointed at residents and the hotel staff, which Amy says was stressful and heartbreaking. From the beginning, when Elisa went missing, I just had a bad feeling about it. She was traveling alone, and I really thought she must have gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd, and that wouldn't be hard to do in downtown LA. Before Elisa's death, the hotel already had a bad reputation. It was a place with a history of suicides, overdoses, and a place where several high-profile serial killers had stayed. But for Amy, before Elisa's disappearance, it wasn't a bad place at all. There's a lot of darkness that people like to revisit, like Richard Ramirez. But I mean, it wasn't awful to work there, she says. We had a great team, we were running a business, and I enjoyed it. And Joe was committed to telling the story of people like Amy as much as he was telling Elisa's. My reputation for being responsible probably helped convince Amy to talk, and I think her perspective is really essential, he says. There are some real human beings behind the folklore. These were people who were doing the best they can, with limited resources to run a hotel as best as they could in a crummy neighborhood. Amy's out of the hotel business now and is working as a jewelry designer, and also writing a book about her own experiences at the Cecil Hotel. I want to share my story, she says, but this isn't a horror story or anything like that. This is a story about struggle.